This time on The Spark, a playwright with a reputation for bringing comedy and compassion to some of the most harrowing human experiences, and a screenwriter-director whose character-driven stories are lighting up the big screen. Coming up. Welcome to The Spark. I'm Marie Denoya Aronson. My first guest on this, our very first show, is an extraordinary talent who brings humor and light to some of the very darkest and saddest of human experiences. Associate Artistic Director and Playwright in Residence at Trenton's Passage Theater, David Lee White is my guest. Welcome, David.
Hi.
It's so good to have you here on this, our very first show.
I'm honored.
So are we. So you're quite a presence in Trenton at this point as the playwright in residence, but you're not from New Jersey originally.
No. I'm from St. Louis, or a little town right outside St. Louis called Lake St. Louis.
So what led you to make Trenton such a big part of, it seems, your creative life?
Well, I lived all over, I went to school in Kansas City and then Pittsburgh, and then I moved to Chicago, but my wife's family is from Plainsboro. And so once we got married, we moved here, and I just kind of lucked into Passage Theater. I started volunteering for their youth program, and I had done that a number of times, and then a job came up, and it was actually a managing director job, and so I got that, and I was absolutely dreadful at it. Like, I could not have been a worse managing director.
What was the problem there?
Math. But eventually, but I liked the theater, and they liked me, and they wanted to keep me around. So we found other things for me to do, and got someone to do the hard stuff. But I've been there for 13 or 14 years now.
So you were already a playwright when you walked through the door at Passage
No,
Theater?
actually, I had been an actor for years. I got my MFA in acting in Pittsburgh, and then when I lived in Chicago, I was an actor during that time. And I don't know if you heard, there's not a lot of money in acting. So once my wife and I moved here, I fully intended on staying an actor. But then once I got involved with Passage, I found that I really liked the stuff that I was doing there with the kids and everything. And then I started writing plays for them.
For the kids?
For the kids.
So what got you to do that? What inspired you to begin writing for them?
There was something about Trenton and being able to tell the stories of these kids.
So when we say kids, what age group are we talking about?
Middle school, high school. We worked with kids of all ages, and a lot of them I helped them write their own plays. But I had this kind of ensemble of kids that I was working with, and I had this idea that I wanted to stick with them over a multi-year period and just see what they could do if they kept having these experiences in theater. There's about 8 of them.
Wow.
And so as they got older and as I got to know them, I started writing plays specifically for them. And that really is what started it. And then June Ballinger, the artistic director, kind of dared me to write a play for the main stage. So that's how I kind of
Which play is that?
That was
your
Blood, a comedy.
Oh, now Blood. That is quite a play.
Oh, thank you.
I know it's been produced a number of times.
A few times, yeah. 2 big productions and then workshopped various places.
So let's just talk about, just because I think this begins to tell the story of the themes that you choose to write about.
Yeah.
This is a mother with Alzheimer's hosts an interesting dinner party. Just without giving away too much,
Sure.
Give us a little sense of what Blood, a comedy, is about.
Well, it's a farce, or a pseudo farce. Jacqueline is an older woman who is a lifelong atheist and intellectual. She's on the science department of a university, and she is struggling with Alzheimer's. And one thing that she has never entertained in her mind is the idea of religion. And she's not sure why she's never really entertained that, but she knows nothing about it, but she decides to have this dinner party and invite her wayward children to the party. Her daughter's about to get married. Her son is a internet pornographer, and decides to bring them all together in order to have a religious ritual. But she doesn't know anything about religion. She's kind of making it up as she goes. And so as the play goes on, family secrets are revealed, and it's a fairly perverse little comedy. But hope anyway has some heart to it.
Has
You know.
so much heart and depth. Now, I have never seen it produced, but the way the characters just jumped off the page, I have found, I felt like they were sitting next to me and making me laugh or making me sort of recoil. How do you do that? I mean, as you're writing, are they loosely based on people that you know, so you hear their voices, or how do you get those voices onto the page?
Sometimes they are. I think in that particular instance, I did have certain actors in mind that I had worked with, and so that certainly helped.
Was that at Passage, the actors you'd worked with?
Yeah. There's the actors that did the original production. They're a couple Philadelphia actors, Charlotte Northeast, Damon Benetti, and then June Ballinger, the artistic director, was also in the show. And so I really had their voices in my head, but they're always, all the characters are always kind of based on people I know, too,
When you sit down to write a play like that, do you have the end game in your mind, or does the writing lead you to the conclusion, to the heart of the story?
The heart of the story I always find as I'm writing. It's never what I think it's going to be. I think there is kind of a subconscious thing that happens when you write, somewhere in your mind or heart or soul, what the play is about, but my conscious mind never knows it. And it's actually taken me a while to kind of trust that process. I always try to force it into something that I want it to be, and that never works. So your subconscious always finds a way to reassert itself somehow.
And the inspiration for you, for your stories, now you told us about the kids in Trenton.
Yeah.
And I guess what you were observing is that they were struggling with certain things in their life.
Yeah, I mean, mainly, I thought it was interesting in that they were so smart and so funny and so intelligent, and really what they were struggling with was the perception people had of them in their town. And people don't have a very positive image of Trenton, which is totally understandable. But they seem to, I don't know, rise above it kind of effortlessly. So I found that really fascinating, that they would deal with the way they dealt with that.
And I imagine they have a love of their community, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They see what's beautiful about Trenton, whereas people who come in from the outside don't understand the Trenton they see. Is that correct?
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's, as the years have gone on, I've really discovered that you meet these people that grew up in Trenton decades ago, and they have such horrible memories of the what Trenton became. And then you talk to the kids that grew up in that Trenton,
Yes.
and they have nostalgia for the same Trenton that all these other people disdain, So it really is a matter of what our home is and how we feel about our home and our youth, and that's really fascinating to me.
Yes. And you were able to draw that out of them through a theater? Did you start asking them to write sketches or plays, or?
I would interview. So I do a lot of the plays I do have interview-based stuff in them. So I interviewed kids. One of the first plays I did was called "If I Could in My Hood, I Would," and it was loosely based on some gang violence that was going on at the time. And one of the young men that I was working with wound up being arrested and going to jail. So I was just so shocked. He just, so I wound up interviewing his friends and his, people that knew him, and then fictionalizing it. And I created this show for these kids. But that was kind of the genesis of that. Yeah.
Tell me about just the value of comedy. It's so much a part of your work, even though you take on, in your one-man production, Panther Hollow, you take on depression.
Yeah.
Tell me how comedy works its way into your work that way.
It's a language. I really think comedy is a language. And, when I was in college, I was in a comedy troupe, and that really became my lifeblood. That was really my salvation, was being in this comedy troupe. And the philosophy of that group was really that comedy was a language. You learn how to speak it, and we talk to one another in this way. And so when I go to write, even when I'm not trying to write a comedy, and obviously some are funnier than others, I find that kind of comes out. And because it's a language that everyone speaks, you know, and that everyone wants to hear, and it makes you lean in to the message. And I don't mock what I'm writing about, but I try to find the natural humor in it.
The sense of timing in your pieces are just, they're just so spot on.
I had a really bad year when I was 25. And it was one of those things where I thought, other people should know that these kind of things can happen to people. You can have these years where you suffer from clinical depression and you need help. And no one told me that was going to happen. Not that they should have known. Like, I'm not blaming anyone. But I thought, well, if I can tell my story, maybe someone will hear it and go, oh, good, all right. Now I'm prepared, and that's not going to, well, I don't know what they would think. But I do think that theater is the kind of place where you can tell stories and someone can sit there and go, ah, right, me too. And I think there's value in that.
Is it a funny show?
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I intend for it to be. You know, I don't know why. I don't think you could talk about depression if you don't talk about it funny. It'd be too depressing. You don't want to do a show about depression that depresses people. I mean, that kind of like defeats the purpose, right? That kind of, you know, there's no point in that. People with depression don't need to see a show about depression. They're already depressed. But if they could see a comedy about depression, maybe that makes them feel a little bit better.
Is that something you've honed, or is that a natural, your ear?
I'm sure I've honed it. A lot of Marx Brothers movies growing up,
Yeah.
a lot of Evan Costello, and also just a lot of really surrounding myself with people that were really good at it and trying to keep up, you know.
Wow.
So that was, you know, you had to, in the comedy troupe I mentioned before, you had to learn how to keep up or they would destroy you.
Did you do a lot of
So-
improv, or
Oh
was
yeah,
that part of it?
improv, sketch comedy, stuff like that, yeah.
So your upcoming project, I understand you've been commissioned to write a play for NJPAC, New Jersey
Yeah.
Performing Arts Center. How is that going?
It's the hardest thing I've ever written.
Why is that?
Well, it deals with mental illness, and you know, I dealt with depression when I wrote Panther Hollow, but that was a very personal story. This is fictional, but based on a lot of interviews that I've done, people with bipolar disorder, people being caretakers for people with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia.
Really in deep, wow, and it's called Sanism, is that correct?
So far it is, yeah.
Okay, so far we should see that in 2017, I understand, right?
Yes,
So, okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, David Lee White, we continue to anticipate great things from you. Coming up, a screenwriter on the verge of his directorial feature film debut, Tom's River's own Tom Sergio. On